Welcome to this video tutorial. Today we're going to be making half square triangles. We are going to do them 2 at a time, 4 at a time and 8 at a time. So the tools you're going to need is you'll need a pair of fabric scissors, your rotary cutter. I've got a little seam roller here to press the seams to one side on my half square triangles. I've got a pressing mat just here and an iron. I've also got a cutting mat. This one I've got here is a revolving one, which is quite useful at times for this tutorial. And I've also got a square quilter's ruler. You could use your ordinary ruler if you want to, but you will need to find the 45-degree angle on your ruler, because that's where what you'll need to use to place onto your half square triangle for trimming it. I actually find it easier with the square one because it's got the diagonal line right along the middle. So I can just measure on the two sides and place the diagonal line along the seam line of the half square triangle. Okay, so once you've got all your tools together and chosen your fabrics, we're ready to start. I have my fabrics cut, so I have got 2 lots of 4-inch squares, 2 lots of 5 3/4 and 2 lots of 8-inch squares. So we're going to do 2 at a time with the 4-inch, and we're going to do 4 at a time with the 5 3/4 and 8 at a time with the 8-inch. So I'm going to start with the 4-inch squares. Now these are going to make a 3-inch finished half square triangle. So on the back of one of your fabrics, you need to draw a diagonal line. Place your square of fabric on top of the right side of your second piece, and we're going to stitch a scant 1/4 inch down either side of this line. I have stitched a scant 1/4 inch either side of my centre line. It will all depend on what your pattern asks for you to do, whether you stitch a full 1/4 inch or a scant one. I'm now going to cut it in half with my quilting ruler and my rotary cutter. So again, point to point along that line. And there we go. So you now should have 2 half square triangles. I'm going to press mine to the slightly darker fabric, as they're both cream. I'm going to do it to the patterned one. Again, depending on what the pattern asks for, it may ask you to press to the lighter side of the fabric, or it may ask you to press the seam open. But for this tutorial, I'm just going to press mine to the side using my seam roller. Once I've finished all of the half square triangles today, I'm going to press them flat with an iron. There we go. So now we just need to measure them, because we need them to be 3 inches square, and they may need to be trimmed down slightly. I'm going to use my square ruler to trim my half square triangle. So I've got a diagonal line on there which I'm going to place on the seam line that goes diagonally across the block, and I'm just going to measure how wide this is. So it is approximately 3 inches and just under 5/8. So I need to cut off at least 1/4 of an inch off each side. So I'm going to do that first of all. So I'm just going to move my ruler over and just a little bit past the 1/4 inch. So you just see it just about there. And I'm also going to pull it downwards so I can do the same for the top piece. So we'll cut both off at the same time. So I'll just move that down. So then what you want is you want your diagonal line that's on the ruler to be running along the center of your block. So I'm just going to trim that. And then I'm going to move it around and do the same for the other side. So we know it's going to be 3-inch square finished. So we'll place that on the 3-inch line. And again, with this center line on your ruler against the seam that runs across the middle on the diagonal. And there we have one finished 3-inch square, half square triangle. You've got another one to do as well. So I will do that one, and then we will move on to the 5 3/4 squares to do the 4 at a time. Next we have our 2 5 3/4 inch pieces. This time we're going to make 4 at a time for half square triangles. So taking one of your fabrics, you need to place it on top of your other fabric, right sides together. And with this one, we're going to stitch a scant 1/4 inch or a full 1/4 inch all the way round the edges. Once you have stitched all the way round, hopefully you can just see the stitching line there. We're going to cut it in half across the diagonal and then in half again. And then that will then give us 4 half square triangles. As we did with the first ones, we're going to measure them and see if we need to trim them down to 3-inch square. So I'll measure the first one. Actually, I'm just going to flatten it first. So again, it looks like we've actually got almost 3 1/4 inch size. So I'm going to trim those down to 3 inches as we did before. And there we have our 4 at a time half square triangles. For the 8 at a time half square triangles, I'm using 2 squares that are 8-inch. So first of all, I'm going to draw some lines on the reverse of the cream coloured one. So that's on the wrong side. So we'll just draw a line across each diagonal. Then place the two bits of fabric together, right sides together. And because this is a larger piece, I'm going to put a few pins in just to keep it together so as it doesn't move when I get it under the machine. And then I'm going to stitch a scant 1/4 inch either side of the drawn lines. Once you've stitched your 4 horizontal lines, we're then going to cut it into 8 half square triangles. So first of all, we need to just cut along the 2 horizontal pieces. And then we're going to cut each of the separate triangles in half. So if you place one of the solid lines on your ruler at the bottom of the triangle, then just find the middle point, and then you should be able to cut 2 of them together. And then we'll do the same on the other side. And there we have our 8 triangles. Here we have our 8 half square triangles. I've pressed them and trimmed all the little ears off the corners as well. Thank you for watching this tutorial. Subscribe to my channel to be notified of my next sewing video.